You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage: a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business, life, and career. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, with the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, it is not officially winter, but it might as well be. We have snow all over the 50 states. I was talking to some folks down in the Midwest, and they got hit. And, we're up in the Northeast here in Connecticut, but it was actually colder down there than it was here.
Yeah, it's been a wild weather pattern. I mean, basically, if you turn on the weather map, they show like the wind shift or whatever that goes up and down, and
Yep.
it's like a big curve. And a few times it's been all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico over Texas and stuff like
Yes.
that, where it's been warmer here, but it's been quite cold this year as opposed to prior years. I mean, I journal, and the past week, a few years ago, it was like about 65 degrees, and I put the hoses away and put the pots away and so on and so forth. And a year later, there was 11 inches of snow on the ground. Last week, you're more in the middle of the state, so it's not quite as snowy there. But up here in Avon, we got a couple inches, and it's still on the ground a week later. So, but hey, the one thing about winter is the skies are the bluest that they are all year, this time of year with the sunshine and so on and so forth. If you want to look at a silver lining in the clouds of winter, that's it. It's just beautiful out sometimes.
Well, it really is the holiday season. And, here in the Northeast, of course, we consider this Christmas weather. But, people freak out up here when I remind them of this. But you go south of New York City, and 90% of the country at that point has never seen a white Christmas. So you never know, with the polar vortex doing what it did this year, we might all see a white Christmas this year.
You never know. It might be white in Florida and palm trees in Connecticut. Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles. And, the fact of the matter is we all have to do this at one point or another. Some big obstacles, some little obstacles. But there's a certain mindset that gets you ready to take on challenges, whether they're big or small. And it's something I've been saying an awful lot to people lately. It's yes, you can. And of course, the reason I've been saying it so much is it's the title of my most recent book that just came out a few weeks ago. But the whole reason that the book is named that is because people tend to think, oh, that's for somebody else to do. I'm not good enough to do that. And the fact of the matter is, we are all capable of so much more than we think we can. So the first step, no matter what the obstacle, big or small, is to say to yourself, I can handle this. I may not know how to get past this obstacle at this moment, but I will figure it out and I will get past.
Yeah. We talk all the time about the power of changing yes buts to yes ands for a week. And that basically is overcoming obstacles and changing them into opportunities. Basically, before I renamed my presentation to the kindness platform, it used to be called the power of positivity, turning your obstacles into opportunities, because every obstacle has one. And basically, step number one is the core principles, again, according to AI here. Number one is just embracing the challenge and reframe the obstacles as opportunities. Keep a positive mindset. Number two, cultivate resilience as opposed to giving up, and then focusing on what you can control. It starts out with simplifying things, because what happens is when we're facing an obstacle, all of a sudden our mind goes crazy and we let those 60,000 thoughts a day turn into a whole menagerie, an avalanche of negativity as to why you can't do things. So basically, you just got to take a pause, embrace the challenge, and just take it step by step, every present moment by every present moment. And obviously, there's strategies to put those into use too, which we'll be talking about. So
Yeah, and once you see what the challenge is, and we talk about this in terms of tasks all the time, but it really is important to break it down. There's an old joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't take on the entire challenge at once, especially, well, unless it's a little challenge, a little obstacle. But for larger ones, you have to look at it as, okay, what is my next step? And once you accomplish that, when you figure out, okay, the first thing I need to do is, and you do it, that will lead you to the second step, and then to the third, and so on. So you need to break obstacles down. You know, think of an obstacle as a wall. Now, if you happen to have a wrecking ball, that's great. You go through in one shot. But if all you have is a pickaxe, you have to take your time and start chipping away piece by piece.
yeah, and we talk a lot about time management and putting together to-do lists and that kind of thing. And that's basically what this is. Breaking it down is to looking at the task itself, but then breaking it down into little steps, prioritizing them. And step number two, because practical strategies, number one is break it down according to my little AI thing here. But number two is take action, because once it's in front of you, and we've talked about this before too, the P word comes in often, which is procrastination. And basically what needs to be done once you have them broken down to smaller steps is small step by small step, move forward by taking action.
Exactly. The old saying, I think it was Confucius, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Well, you have to take that step. And that's something else we've talked about fairly often, is the fact that you actually need to do things. You can't just sit there contemplating your navel and think that the problem is going to go away. You may be able to accept it better after some meditation and contemplation, but it's not going to go away unless you take action to do so. And that's where a lot of people fall down, because they get paralyzed by an obstacle. They look at something, they become overwhelmed. Well, again, that's where your mindset comes in. You know, Obstacles are there to test you, to see how much you're capable of, and to see how badly you want your goal. If you don't want it badly, you're going to look at the obstacle and go, oh, it's not worth it. I don't want to make the effort. And then you won't get past the obstacle. You won't achieve your goal. You won't get to wherever it is you're trying to get to. So you can't just say, you know what? I'm going on a vacation, and say, I'm going to go to the Galapagos Islands, and then not do anything about it, not make a plan to go there, not save money to go there, and expect it to happen. It's all about taking action.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next thing to realize is that all of us as humanity has our own obstacles. However, we all have relationships also, and we don't have to do this alone. So the next step is to seek support, family, friends, neighbors, professionals, and so on and so forth. Get some guidance, and perhaps you'll be helping them out at the same time because they may be going through the same thing or obstacles of their own. And the more you collaborate with others and do it as a group, it's the old math, 1 + 1 is 3, and so on and so forth. So just realize there's other people out there for you to lean on that will be very, very happy to help you out. And just as you are happy to help them too. So seek support.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have trouble with, asking for help. And we did over a year ago now, have that conversation with our friend Bob Berg, who's the author of the Go Giver series. That's one of the laws is you have to be willing to receive. And we're just raised to say, oh, well, it's good for us to give of ourselves, but not, not to receive. It's better to give than receive. Well, there are times when you need help, and it's not going to show up magically. You actually have to let somebody know what's going on and ask for help. It could be advice, it could be assistance, whatever it is. But the part that most people have problems with is they equate asking for help with weakness. And asking for help has nothing to do with strength or weakness. We all have things we're good at, and we all have things that we're lousy at. And everybody has different things they're good at and lousy at. So when you have an obstacle that you can't overcome by yourself, you need to reach out to people and find the folks that are good at that particular thing, just like they would seek you out if they were faced with something that you're good at. So put thoughts of being weak out of your mind and ask for assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also so important that we all are born with and create our own inferiority complexes.
Yep.
And the more that we stay to ourselves, we have a whole lot of problems with that. So it's so, so important to practice self compassion, to look in the mirror, be kind to yourself when you face difficulties. The bottom line is if friends come up to you and they have difficulties, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell them good luck? No, you're going to have compassion for them and try and help them out. You should be doing that with the person in the mirror all the time who is unconditionally, whether you think or not, you are worthy of self compassion because that's where we all came from, something a whole lot beyond what we are. So it's really, really important to pump yourself up too. Get some tools in your head to do that. As I say, one of the things that I do every single day is I wake up in the morning and I practice the high five habit. And I just give myself a high five every morning saying, today, wherever I go, whatever I'm doing, I will be positive while I'm not quite hitting the mirror to break it. But it's so, so important to do that. You got to love that person in the mirror because there's a really big source beyond all of us that is our old source that loves that person in the mirror. So practice that just like you would when somebody else reaches out to you. You're not going to say no to somebody else. Don't say no to yourself either.
Yeah, that's so true. We tend to be so much harder on ourselves than we are on other people. We make a mistake, we will punish ourselves psychologically, where it's not deserved. And you do have to sometimes take that step back and think of it as, you know, if this had happened to someone else, how would you respond? And really give that some thought because we tend to blame ourselves for things that if it happened to someone else, we would be looking at them going, well, there's no way that's your fault. You had no control over it. But we want that control. We need to feel that, we could have done something, and we start beating ourselves up about it. Well, in that way, we are our own worst enemies. And it's time to make peace with that enemy. Give yourself a break. Cut yourself some slack. We are humans, which means by definition, we are not perfect. And even if you could control every little thing that happened in everybody's life, you'd still be surprised by some of the outcomes. So give yourself a break. Understand that, yes, there are things out of your control. Doesn't mean you can't fix them, but it does mean it's not your fault that it happened. Now, having said that, we also do need to accept responsibility for when something is our fault. Don't try to shift the blame if you did something wrong that causes a problem. Just say, yes, I screwed up. Now I'm going to fix it. I could use a little help. It's as simple as that. Don't try to make excuses. Don't try to put the blame on someone else. Just say it. I screwed up. I'm probably going to screw up at some point again. But let's get together and fix this.
Yeah, and with your positive mindset, you can look in the mirror and laugh at yourself for doing it instead of kicking yourself in the butt. So,
Right.
uh, we talk, we talked about breaking things down to to-do lists and so on, and basically that's all part of being prepared. But realize that what you're going through is going to be a learning experience. So, basically, planning ahead and considering potential issues to develop contingency plans is important. But as you're saying, embrace the failures as learning experiences to become smarter and better prepared for the future. Nobody ever gets it right the first time, all the time. And when we talk about business and going through to-do lists as a team and so on and so forth, you're on a team with yourself. Just evaluate what's happened, learn from it, and advance ahead. So it's really, really important to do that.
Yeah, that's so true. You do need to be prepared, but that's also a fine line. And I'll go back to a quote from Mark Twain. I have experienced many terrible things in life, a few of which actually happened. You want to be prepared when something happens, but you don't always want to be thinking of the worst. You have to be realistic. Think about what can happen and be prepared if it does. But certainly don't go looking for things. Don't go imagining the worst. Because the big problem with that is that when people imagine the worst, they don't prepare for it. They just think this is the worst thing that can happen, and they get stopped in their tracks by fear and dread. And that shouldn't be, because first of all, for most of us, when you imagine that worst case scenario, if you take it a step further and say, well, what would the actual consequences be? For most things that are actually going to happen, the consequences are manageable. There are very few things that you're going to do that if you do it wrong will kill you. They're out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're a welder, for God's sakes, be careful. Yeah. You're working on a construction site or you're working under a car. Yes, there are dangers. But most of the things that people worry about never come to pass. Right now, we are living the tomorrow that so many of us were worried about yesterday. And guess what? We're still here. We're still moving forward. We're still getting things done. So, yes, you want to prepare for things, but you want to prepare realistically. Is it possible that this winter there could be a power outage? In most parts of the country, yes, that is a very real possibility. So, what do? Well, you make sure you have some candles, you make sure you have flashlights, batteries. Take realistic steps, but don't go crazy and think, oh, well, I have to be ready in case power is out for, 2 months. It's rarely out that long. And if it is, you probably have bigger problems than the power going out.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously that's an extreme circumstance, but the Mark Twain quote, that you talked about, I think when I read it, it said that in my life, I've experienced many things in my, fears or whatever, most of which have never happened, and y that's what it is, fear, false evidence appearing real, and, again, it's a brain game, so it's so, so important to put things into perspective, and it's your choice, present moment by present moment. I mean, you need a shifter in your mindset where you can just turn on something positive and shift things around and just question yourself when you're looking at the future, just ask, "Is this real? Is it really real?" And put things in perspective, and if you can shift yourself, get a way to shift your mindset towards looking at positive things as opposed to worrying all the time, that's a key. Because obviously, the worriers are gonna have the hardest time overcoming obstacles. The more you worry, the more trouble you're gonna have.
Absolutely. When you have an obstacle, you need to look at it carefully and figure out how to get past it. But you can over prepare, you can over research. I can't count the number of times where someone I know has gotten sick and what they've got is a cold, but they go online and they Google their symptoms and oh my God, I should go to the hospital. I'm dying. It's like, no, you're not dying. You have to look realistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it there's an old commercial that they're warning against online scams. And an older gentleman on his computer, and he says, he goes, "Hey, I just won the Australian lottery." And his wife says to him, "Did you play the Australian lottery?" "Well, no." "Then how could you have won it?" You have to look at the reality of the situation. You're not going to get some exotic disease if you've never been to a place that exotic disease exists. Most of the obstacles that we face are made harder by our own minds. And you've got complete control over that. You can break down the obstacle piece by piece and get past it. It's going to take effort in some cases for larger ones. For smaller ones, it may be a piece of cake. You can take care of it in a minute. You're not going to get past either one of them unless you actually take the action. So don't let the fear paralyze you. Get
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about basically going online, doing your own self-diagnosis of this and that, and so on and so forth. I mean, the bottom line is there are experts out there. This is where seeking support comes into play again.
Yep.
There are experts in helping you out doing what you're doing. If you want to be Dr. Eric or Dr. Chip, chances are we're both going to be in trouble. And so it's just so so important not to believe everything that you read or everything that you say. You got to question everything, especially if it doesn't make sense to you, and just understand that the most powerful thing you got going for yourself is your own mind and your own resilience. So it's so, so important. And obviously, if you're doing things and your approach isn't working, you can consider different ways to reach your goal, and you have to be flexible. You got to keep your mind open with things, but just understand that you have that within you and you have the resources around you to help you out.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. When asking for help and support, you do need to think of it as well. If you were in an accident and your hand was just hanging off of you limp, you couldn't move it. Would you try to fix that yourself? No, of course not. You'd call an ambulance, you'd go to the emergency room, you would have the experts fix it. Every obstacle should be treated that way. If you are not the expert, find one. And if you are an expert, find another one who will give you alternatives. Because there's never just one way to solve a problem. There are simpler ways and more complicated ways, certainly. And you really don't want to make things more difficult than you have to. But, Occam's razor says the simplest answer is usually the right one. Try it out. Do what you can and get help for what you can't. There are some things that are beyond one person's ability, but not necessarily another's. Take advantage of that. Ask for help. Get help. And don't try to take everything on yourself. We're not Sisyphus. We don't have to push the boulder up the mountain all by ourselves. Get in touch with family, friends, teachers, doctors, nurses, whatever it is that you need to solve the problem, mechanics, mathematicians, whoever it is. They're out there. And most of them are willing to help. So don't get paralyzed. Accept the obstacle. Understand that, yes, you can get past it. Figure out your plan. Figure out what resources you're going to need to implement that plan, whether it's tools, knowledge, or another person, and go out, get those resources, and keep moving forward. So I see by the clock on the wall that we are just about out of time. Chip, what do you think the big takeaway is from this week?
Well, getting back to the four simple core principles, number one is just embracing the challenge, reframing obstacles as opportunities, opportunities for growth, not as failures. Number two is maintaining a positive mindset, that can do attitude, optimistic outlook rather than pessimist. Number three, resilience, the ability to bounce back after setbacks, which you are bound to have. View failure as the next step towards success. And then, very, very importantly, we talked about this in different ways, but focus on what you can control. Don't worry about the external things that you can't control, and realize that there is help out there, and family and friends and experts that can help you on that. So if you can stay focused and kind of simplify things, that's so, so important, because obviously obstacles, as I say, they just balloon in your head until it's an avalanche of negative thoughts. So just grab the bull by the horns, simplify it, and go make it happen.
Absolutely. I think for me, the big takeaway is understanding that obstacles happen. There's not a lot we can do to avoid all of them. Just understand your capabilities and understand you're probably capable of a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And on the note of asking for help, we do this every year. And in fact, our sister podcast, Lighting the Candle, A World That Works, has taken to doing this every week. But it's the holiday season now. Reach out to somebody you haven't heard from in a while. Send them an email, a card, a phone call. Let them know you're thinking of them. Let them know that if they have obstacles, you're there for them. And you'll see, the more people do that, the better the world will be. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at exabodio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.